All right, welcome back, and let's talk about security now. Al-Qaeda affiliate, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, AQIM, has threatened attacks on Western companies' operations across North and West Africa, calling them legitimate targets and urging Muslims to boycott them. The group has carried out a number of high-profile attacks in Algeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Ivory Coast in the past, where dozens of people were killed. Now, the threat comes at a time when the West African sub-region in particular is still struggling to contain the activities of terrorist groups like Boko Haram, which continues to carry out attacks in Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. Nigeria has since declared Boko Haram technically defeated, but the group still carries out wanton suicide bombings, among the latest, of course, being the twin suicide bombings in the Nigerian northeastern town of Mubi in Adamawa State, where over 50 persons were killed on May the 1st. So what is the implication of this threat by Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb on Nigeria? Joining me now to look at this issue is security expert Dr. Ona Ekomo. Doctor, this must be something very serious. What do you make of this threat by Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, like we say in security, we try to take every threat seriously because you don't know which one is going to materialize. But while taking them seriously, you have to evaluate them. You have to look at what the threat matrix, what's their intention, what are their motivations, and what are their capabilities, and then what have they done in the past. Now, we know that Akim was part of the group that strengthened Boko Haram to become a threat in Nigeria. But Boko Haram is on ground in Nigeria, and Boko Haram knows the lay of the land, so Boko Haram is a valid threat. Now, if Akim says they want to attack Western interests through Boko Haram, that is a credible threat. That means it's very high. But if they say they want to come in here from Algeria and attack us by themselves, or through the people who run the usual operations through West Africa, that is through the Sahelian zone, like Mujiwa or Ansar al-Din or Amira Bitum, I would say that is a far-fetched because those threats are well known and they've been caged in terms of being able to come into Nigeria. Perhaps we can have some infiltration, but not in the kind of numbers that will come out here and carry out spectacular attacks on Western interests. So I think that's the way to look at it. We should be cautious based on the fact that they've said this, and then probably assess our security posture properly. But we shouldn't be overly worried unless they want to carry the threats out using their capability that they have in their army that's on ground, that is Boko Haram.
Now, we have seen this group carry out attacks in places like Algeria, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Mali. So what do you think the governments of these countries, especially in West Africa now, should be doing to deal with this threat?
Well, they need to continually conduct risk assessments and terrorist threat assessments also, because we know that the terrorists, they are looking for opportunities to strike, and they want to get noticed. They want their agenda to be front and center, and so they're not going to relent until they perhaps achieve their nefarious objectives. In some cases, like what we saw back in 2012, they even want to govern spaces, which of course they found is very dangerous to their health. Even like ISIS itself has found that governing is dangerous, because when you govern, when you hold down territory, we now know where you are, and the government security forces can come and kill you. But when you are a guerrilla force, it is harder for you to be killed because you blend in with the population and nobody knows who you are or where you are, and you can strike at will. That means government must ratchet up its intelligence in order to frustrate your attacks. But having said that, now in those West African countries you've mentioned, Mali, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, they attacked hotels that were frequented by foreigners. And now the fact here is what kind of hotel security was in place in those places. and then what was the threat assessment, because that's really where it begins. The threat assessment is the key, is the king in all of this. You must be able to properly assess what the threat is going to be, then now integrate it with your vulnerability. That's called TVI, Threat Vulnerability Integration. You must now look at what is your vulnerability, juxtapose it with the threat that is out there, and know what to cover. Vulnerabilities are, what are your weaknesses? What are the weaknesses in your organization? You don't have adequate security, you don't have cameras, you don't have proper vetting procedures, even for local staff that you employ, because we see in many of these places, they use local staffers to carry out their attacks. So what I'm saying is the government security agencies, I'm not talking about military forces now who will fight them on a counter-terrorism foot. I'm talking about the government security forces who do the anti-terrorism. Anti-terrorism, that is prevention of terrorism, even before we get to countering them, that is fighting them. Those ones have to up their games in terms of threat assessments and vulnerability assessments. So that, and then of course, certainly the intelligence game is very important, because if you have good intelligence, then you know how to nip them in the bud even before they strike.
When you talk about threat assessment, you mean that is what these Western companies operating in West Africa should be doing at this moment?
Exactly. They need to look at who are the attackers, what are they going to attack, how are they going to attack, what kind of weaponry do they have, what is their motivation, how have they done it before, what are they saying on their websites. You know, there are so many questions. And then you have to look at TAPIs. TAPIs are terrorist attack pre-incident indicators. What kind of, how are they staging? How are they preparing for these attacks? Let me give you an example. Boko Haram, before they went to jihad level in July of 2009, they were living in communes. And communes, that's by themselves only, and nobody had access to those communes. Now, that was wrong from an intelligence standpoint. Our intelligence agencies should have infiltrated those communes so that they will know the level of ordnance that these guys were keeping there, so that they could assess their battle readiness. Because when they went on a jihad level, we were surprised by many things that they did. And up to today, we are still being surprised by their capabilities to strike at will, particularly throughout the northeast of the country.
Let's narrow this down to Nigeria now. We've seen a lot of violence lately in this country. I mean, you look at the middle belt of the region, herdsmen attacking. You go to the northwest of the country, Zamfara State, for instance. We've seen several killings there. We've also seen killings in places like Kaduna State, I mean, where about 70 persons were killed recently. What exactly is going on? Is it that our security agencies are overwhelmed? Isn't this a failure on the part of the security agencies?
Every time there's a killing of this nature, some gangsters, some herdsmen, whatever you want to call them, some bandits come in and slaughter lots of people. Like this last one in Birnin-Gwari, we are talking about 72 dead. Every time that happens, that is a massive, that's a colossal failure of security. And it doesn't matter what excuses they give, that somebody went to the toilet, that's how come they missed the attack. That's nonsense. That's a colossal failure of security. So now the next question becomes, what security agency is responsible for this? Who should have done something? Well, first of all, intelligence is a problem here. The intelligence agencies, that's a massive failure. Anytime somebody can move around with ordnance and capability to deliver violence in order to kill something, it means we don't have good internal intelligence in this country. Now, that's a problem. Now, what about the policing agencies? When I say police agencies, I don't mean Nigeria Police Force per se. I think Nigeria Police Force is largely absent in the context of what's going on right now because they are hamstrung in so many ways. So they are not able to provide the kind of services we need. But then there are so many other agencies. We have the Nigerian Army, we have the military, we have civil defense, we have even the people at the borders immigration, customs, you know. And so when there's a collapse of policing right from the borders and everybody can come into this country like they are doing right now, then we do have a problem. Everybody wants to be posted to Murtala Mohammed Airport where they can get dollars. Nobody wants to go to some bush station in Katsina State or in Sokoto State, you know, to go and do immigration work there. And that is the problem. So everybody lobbies to come to Lagos. They lobby to be in Kano, Makia, that's Malam Aminu Kano International Airport, so that they can collect dollars. But they don't want to go and do the hard job, which their profession calls for. So what I'm saying, in a sense, is that there is a collapse, total collapse of policing throughout the country, including Nigeria Police Force, the military. Please let me be guarded in that statement. The military is only an aid to civil authority. Unfortunately, they are aiding civil authority in every state of the country now. So they have to be called in, as it were, because they are conducting civilian policing in this context. They are not fighting a war. So these are the kinds of things that are happening here. So we have a combination of things. We have the herdsmen violence, where herdsmen are called into, that is the militia, militant pastoralists are called in to come and kill people when they offend their fellow herdsmen that are on ground here. That is number one. And then you have cattle rustlers, where people come from neighboring countries and come to steal cattle so that they can take it across the borders. And that's what you're having on the west, that's the northwest of the country, Zamfara, Birnin Kebbi, that you're talking about. That's what we're having there.
You talked about intelligence, and to be candid, I've spoken to quite a lot of security analysts and experts, and they've identified intelligence failure as the core reason why Nigeria has not been able to defeat the Boko Haram insurgency all these years. In your opinion, would you say intelligence, you know, the failure of intelligence gathering and sharing, if you like, is what is actually driving not just the Boko Haram insurgency, but Nigeria's insecurity challenge at the moment?
Yes. Well, I'm not surprised, because I know that we need to build our capacity in terms of gathering. We need to enlarge our capacity in terms of gathering. And we need to do better work, particularly in terms of analysis. That is really where the intelligence is failing in this country, because the intelligence analysis or the intelligence analytic capability is still in its infancy, or it's not developed, or even it's not even understood or recognized. And that is the real tragedy here, because you can gather all the intelligence you want from today till next tomorrow, but if it's not properly analyzed, dissected to get meaning out of it, then of course you don't have anything, you just have bits of information. And that's what is happening. Until we are able to put all these bits of information into some kind of intelligence analytic software, whether it's a human software or computer software, you know, and then be able to predict what the bad guys are going to do. It's only in prediction, being able to foretell what the bad guys are going to do and disrupting their plots. That's where intelligence proves its value. Intelligence that doesn't help you frustrate a terrorist attack is no intelligence. It's a waste of time. So, and we seem to be adept at that. We are very distracted. Our intelligence agencies are very distracted. Like we say in security, there is a dichotomy. We have intelligence, that is gathering information, which is used ahead of time to keep a population safe. And we have investigation, which is going to reconstruct what happened after the fact. So our intelligence agencies are focused more on investigation. They want to do investigation rather than preventing. So that's why you see they say DSS is parading people who killed somebody. DSS is parading Kabiru Sokoto, is parading the man who plotted St. Teresa Madala bombing. That's not the work of DSS. That's not the work. Even if they helped in the detection of that guy, that's not their work. Their work is to provide intelligence to keep herdsmen from coming to kill Nigerians in the first place, to keep Kabiru Sokoto from bombing Yanya Station on April 14th, 2014 to keep Bara from destroying the UN building whenever he did that. That's on the 26th of August 2011. And so, you know, these are the things, that's what they're supposed to do. They are supposed to be prescient. They are supposed to know ahead of time. That is what the gathering does. When you gather, somebody analyzes and is able to come up with something. There are tools out there. There are behavioral analytic tools. We cannot predict Boko Haram attacks because we are not looking. You know, we can't predict them because we are not looking, and we're caught flat-footed, surprised all the time. So that's really the job here. The intelligence agencies are more interested in investigation because it's more glamorous. Investigation is done in the full glare of everyone. So you see people wearing masks, wearing black uniform, and looking like they are very tough. But that's not the point here. That is useful for takedown. But takedown is as a preemptive measure, not as an investigative measure. That is the job of the police agency. So what has happened here, why intelligence has melted in the country, or melted down in the country, is that there's been this struggle for relevance among all security agencies in the country. Everybody is trying to catch Mr. President's attention that, hey, over here, I'm working hard. You know, and that's not what it's about. You are supposed to look at your constitutional role or your mandatory role and perform it. You know, and when you start trying to get in the newspapers every day, there was a time, there was even a war among state directors of security on who can get on the pages of the newspapers more on television, so that the people in Abuja will know that they are working in the states. I mean, that's nonsense.
Well, Dr. Ona Ekomo, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Well, that's it on the program. If you want to watch it again, it's simple. Just go to our website, tv360nigeria.com. You'll find this program and lots more there. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/TV360Nigeria. Do subscribe now to get the latest updates and happenings around the country and, of course, beyond. You can join us on Google Plus as well. It's at TV360Nigeria. Or like us on Facebook. The address is facebook.com/TV360 online. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our handle is at TV360 Nigeria. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week.